So we invited Farm to Cafeteria Canada and Farm to School BC to present on the Farm to School F2S model and allow you, the participants, to ask questions and to brainstorm how this model might work in Alberta. So this is our agenda for today. We finished with Alberta Food Matters. We are first of all going to hear from Jesse Veenstra, the Director of Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And then we will hear from Richard Hand and Marcus Lobb from Farm School BC, who have quite a vibrant program running there. And then we will have a Q&A with the presenters. The Q&A will probably go about 10 minutes. And then we're going to go into some breakout rooms and brainstorm ideas or next steps coming out of the presentations that are dealing with how can we take that model and use it in Alberta. When we come out of the, so I'm just going to say about the breakout rooms, I'm going to give you two options. One, I'm going to put a link to Google Slides in the chat box, and you could either use the Google slide to write down notes about what your breakout room talks about, or if you just wanted to use pen and paper, then when you go into your breakout room, just write down your thoughts, and then we'll come out of the breakout rooms and share our ideas. And then we'll have our closing and thank you. So that should run us about an hour and a half. Sorry. Okay. So I am going to stop sharing and go over, let Jessie show her screen. And Jessie from Farm to Cafeteria Canada will present.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to speak today, Wanda, and everyone for being here. My name is Jesse Veenstra. I'm the Director of Farm to Cafeteria Canada. Joining you today from the ancestral unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations in Vancouver, British Columbia. Really excited to be here to talk to folks in our neighboring province of Alberta. Just a brief overview. I'm going to give a bit of an introduction into Farm to Cafeteria Canada, who we are, what we do, how we work. And then I'll share a little bit about what we've been up to primarily for the last few years and our goal to grow the farm to school movement across the country and hopefully in Alberta. So first of all, for those that may be unfamiliar with Farm to Cafeteria Canada or just need a bit of a refresher, we are a partnership-based organization. So we do function primarily as a backbone organization to facilitate collective action to get healthy local food into public spaces across the country. And to date, our work has primarily been focused in the school setting. And our partners are really, really important to facilitating this work, as you'll see as we go throughout the presentation. And I just want to acknowledge that the Canada Digs In initiative has been sort of our core flagship work for the last about almost going on 5 years now. So that's going to be a lot of what I'll touch on today. Before I dive too deep in, I just want to set the tone of what it is when we talk about a farm to school approach. Sounds pretty straightforward, and it is, but I do always just like to introduce, we refer to farm to school as a model or a lens through which we approach school food, and it's about more than just what students eat for lunch at school or through a snack or breakfast program. But it's really a comprehensive approach that's made up of these three kind of core pieces of a puzzle. And it's a really flexible approach. So outside of these, there's a lot of flexibility within each of the three pieces of the puzzle, and we really encourage it to be kind of by community and for community, because every community and every school is different. And so one component of that is hands-on learning. So the approach gives students an opportunity to kind of have a full sensory experience, to get their hands dirty, whether that's in the classroom, or in a garden or out on a farm or even in a kitchen. And what this is really about, bringing curriculum to life. And I love the analogy. I heard a teacher say once that curriculum is like a pantry, and that there's many avenues to integrate food literacy into curriculum, and really to accompany it to suit different tastes, and importantly, different learning styles for different students. The next piece of the puzzle is actually the food on plates, and this can look, again, very different. This might be a snack program, it might be a cafeteria. It's really about connecting kids to what's healthy, local, and seasonal within their local community. And that looks very different depending on the capacity that a school has. We know many schools don't have cafeterias, so it might be a snack program, it might be a hot lunch program, or it could be a salad bar, which I'll talk a little bit more, that's been kind of central to some of the work that we've been doing for the last few years. The last piece of the puzzle is this idea of school and community connectedness. And it's really important to kind of bringing those other two pieces together, because often community members play a really key role in helping to actually get local food into schools, as well as to facilitate support with food literacy activities. And so that can look different, again, in every community. It may be farmers or other local food producers that are involved in programs, NGOs, often public health dietitians, basically anybody with a passion or experience or interest in the local food system. So the way that we facilitate the farm to school approach and growing this movement across the country, there's a few different ways, but I'll touch on a couple of them briefly. One of the key things is delivering grants. So we do provide grants to schools, directly to schools, and then a variety of supports to come along with that to facilitate those grants through our regional leads, which I'll talk a bit about in a moment. The next is basically offering platforms online these days to connect, but also in person training and conferences, which we hope to be able to get back to. And the other piece that I'll just touch on really briefly, importantly, for Farm to Cafeteria, is evaluating programs. So to date, there hasn't actually been a lot of comprehensive evaluation of farm to school activity in Canada specifically. We've got some great impact evidence from the US, and we're starting to see more evolve here in Canada, but we're really excited shortly to be launching an evaluation framework for farm to school in Canada. And that's based on some in-depth consultation that we've completed over the past year. So you can stay tuned for that. In terms of how we make this work, I'm just going to briefly introduce the regional lead model. So I mentioned earlier that partners are really critical to the work that we do and making this sort of regional approach possible for farm to school, and that is in no small part thanks to our regional leads. And these are individuals that essentially comprise our national team. They work together as a community of practice, and they're sort of the go-to person for farm to school activity in their region, and provide support both to grant recipients as well as anybody else looking to grow farm to school or get started with farm to school in their community. So currently we have regional lead positions in 6 provinces, and we're hoping to eventually have one in every province in territory. That is the goal. And Marcus and Richard, of course, are representatives of BC. So just to kind of illustrate that further, Farm to Cafeteria plays a national coordinating role, and then our provincial partners like the Public Health Association of BC are really critical to providing a leadership role at the provincial level. And so to transition a little bit into work happening across the country, I mentioned the Canada Digs In initiative. So this is a multi-sectoral chronic disease prevention initiative with support from the Public Health Agency of Canada that we have been facilitating since 2016. The project is ongoing and ever evolving, but this is really around 3 kind of key areas, and that's implementing farm to school projects by providing schools with grants, helping them to grow their capacity to deliver farm to school initiatives in their schools, in large part through support with our regional leads, and then of course to evaluate those programs. So in a nutshell, this is sort of a snapshot of what the initiative looks like to date across the country. Almost, there's actually 6 more schools, so there's 126 schools currently across the country. You'll see a few of the regions have smaller numbers, and that's in large part because they've only more recently had schools join through our latest grant cycle, which was awarded last spring of 2020. And so we're really pleased that that includes 3 schools in Alberta, including St. Martin de Porres in Airdrie, Sturgeon Lake First Nation School in Valley View, and W.P. Wagner School of Science and Technology in Edmonton. And I'm just going to briefly play a video that's a bit of a teaser of what some of that looks like in one school in Ontario.
Our small school of 500 to 600 students, we didn't have a cafeteria, so not a lot of food service options. So it was really important at that time that the Farm to School salad bar grant came along. When you start a program like a salad bar, you hope to be changing the narrative of kids who say they don't like vegetables, or parents who tell you their kids don't like vegetables, or try to change their minds about healthy foods and how they eat. And I have to say, one of the most profound impacts has been seeing how excited kids get about vegetables.
I love salad bar because I like salad because it's healthy and they make your bones stronger because almost any vegetables that I get to try.
Teach kids that it's not all about candy or whatever. You can eat salad, it tastes good.
The reason I love the salad bar so much is if I didn't bring enough food to school, I went to salad bar that day, I'd have enough food to eat both lunches.
That it was all locally grown, stuff that they were grown in the classrooms, the garden, and from farmers. I love having a salad bar. It's something we should definitely continue.
So that's just a bit of a teaser, as I said, of some of the activity happening in one school just outside of Toronto, Ontario. You can see a full-length video at our website if you're interested to learn more about their program, including their food literacy. And I mentioned earlier evaluation being really important. So I'll just touch quickly on some of the concrete evidence that we've been starting to get out of evaluation of our first 86 schools participating in 5 provinces. And so we can now confidently say, I think many of us who are familiar or have seen Farm to School in action know much of this through our own experience anecdotally, but we now have evidence to support that Farm to School supports education and learning, so that piece of bringing curriculum to life, like I mentioned, but also allowing students to learn soft skills and, importantly, about the local food system around them and where their food comes from. The next key impact area is public health. So we know students are gaining food skills. They're also actually consuming more healthy local food at school, including fruits and vegetables. And I'll just note that no matter what type of meal service is associated with Farm to School, we do really encourage that it be involve students as much as possible in the preparation and service, as well as selecting what goes on their plates. And the photo you see here, I think, illustrates that really well and how different these 2 little boys' plates look. The other, or third, impact area is community economic development. So we know that schools that are participating in Farm to School are recognizing themselves as leaders in their communities of public institutional procurement, which is really exciting. And that we know kids are a great vehicle for bringing ideas home to their community, or to their families as well. And so not only are schools connecting to local farmers and other food producers, but also that whole kind of school communities and families are connecting and learning more about the local food system around them. There is another impact area that's actually included in our evaluation framework, and that is environmental impacts, but we didn't look at that specifically in this evaluation. But I'll just say that the last piece that stands out with me often the most is how much schools report sort of the sense of ownership and pride that Farm to School brings to communities. And I think as we look ahead, coming out of what's been a really difficult past year and a half, it's really exciting and hopeful to me, and the potential that Farm to School can offer to kind of excite kids, connect them to themselves and to nature as we get back to whatever a new normal may look like in the new school year. So that's a bit about the Canada Digs In initiative and what's been happening across the provinces and the impacts that we're seeing. But I will just note that we know that there's so much more farm to school activity happening across the country. We do host a national map of this activity on our website. And so to date, we've had about 1,200 schools across the country that have registered some level of farm to school activity, including 47 in Alberta. And we suspect that this is actually probably a fairly conservative estimate, in part because some schools don't know about the map and to register their activity, but also it can be a fair bit of information to collect and to put on the map. So one of our goals for this year is to simplify that process and create a new map that's a little bit easier for schools to register their activity. So I will just leave it basically to say that when we design schools with food in mind, everybody wins. And I'm excited with the increasing excited by the increasing interest in Farm to School, and look forward to seeing it grow and help to make that possible in Alberta. So feel free to send me any questions or check out more on our website, and I will pass it back to Wanda.
Thank you. Thanks for that great presentation. So I won't delay going over to Richard and Marcus, who are going to talk about the BC Farm to School project that's been ongoing for a while. So Richard, if you want to share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I can. Great. Thanks so much. All right. Well, thank you. Maybe I'll just start by saying hello, everyone. My name is Richard. I'm the Provincial Manager of Farm to School BC. I'm joining you from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Kikite and Coast Salish people, also known as New Westminster. And I'd like maybe Marcus, if you wanted to quickly introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus Lobb. I'm the Capital Region Community Animator. So I reside in the Lekwungen-speaking territories of the Songhees and Esquimalt, just outside of the capital region of Victoria. And I am the regional animator. I've been in this role for the past couple of years and have been with the organization for coming up on, I think, 4 years now.
Great. And I just wanted to say thank you, Wanda, so much for helping them make the connection with Alberta. So I wanted to wave a hello to our neighbors to the east. We're really excited to be sharing with you about our Farm to School model, and for Jesse for the amazing presentation. I think BC has been really fortunate, as you saw on the map. We've been fortunate to receive 40 salad bar grants from Farm to Cafeteria Canada. And simultaneously, we also operate a separate provincially funded healthy eating program called Farm to School BC. So these two programs are separate, but there's a lot of overlap. So we're also part of the Canada Digs In. And we think there's a lot for us to share. And so we're really excited to come here today with our ideas, what we've learned over the past decade of operating Farm to School programs, and excited to see what kind of discussions happen afterwards. So the title of this presentation is Adapting Farm to School Programs to Meet Local Context. Next slide, please. So at Farm to School BC, our vision is healthy, local, and sustainable food on the plates and minds of all students in BC. And we work closely with school community partners, and we empower and support schools in building comprehensive farm to school programs that support vibrant, sustainable regional food systems while developing student food literacy and enhancing student and community connectedness. And Jesse talked about the 3 core pillars, which are the same for us at Farm to School. So those are healthy local food, hands-on learning, and school and community connectedness. Next slide, please. A little bit about us. The Farm to School BC program and the host organization for BC is the Public Health Association of BC. To date, that's in addition to the 40 schools that were funded through the salad bar grants. Obviously, there's some overlap. We have funded 271 schools in BC. We've been active since 2007, and we have a core team of nine members. So there, at the provincial level, there's myself. We have a communications coordinator. We have a food literacy advisor who is also a teacher by training. So she helps to develop some of our food literacy curriculum and the lesson plans. And we have 6 community animators on the ground, which is basically what we'll be talking about in this presentation. And our program is funded mainly through BC's Ministry of Health. Next slide, please. So definitely, I think when people talk about farm to school programs, salad bar is often something that comes to the top of people's minds. It's a really great way to get students to eat local, healthy food while giving them the option to choose what they want and what they don't want. At the same time, what we recognized, Marcus, could I ask you to mute, please?
Yes, just 1 second here.
At the same time, what we recognize in the BC context, and probably in many contexts that you know in your school communities, is that some schools just aren't ready to implement a salad bar program. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of volunteers, a lot of hands, and a lot of logistics to go through. At the same time, we wanted all schools to start talking about food in ways that suited to their local context. So when we talk about our Farm to School BC program, it can be as simple as a smoothie bar. Something maybe a school is interested in purchasing a few smoothies to get their students to learn about some of the fruits and vegetables that they can blend and drink. So these are just a number of different programs that we fund, but the recipes for the success are the 5 that are listed here. So in order for programs to be successful, it has to be locally adapted. It has to be non-prescriptive, meaning that we have to meet the school community needs. So Farm to School BC also has annual grants that we give to schools, up to $3,000 for startup grants and up to $1,000 for scale-up grants. The scale-up grants are often for those schools that have applied and were successful in receiving a startup grant, but need a little bit of a top-up to continue on with their programs. And in all those grants, we try to be as open-ended as possible, asking schools what sorts of farm-to-school programs that they would like to run. As long as they meet those 3 core pillars mentioned in my previous slide, we try our best to support as many schools as possible. These programs often have to be school and community driven. They have to be equity centered, meaning that we have to fund schools that also don't have a lot of capacity and resources that at the forefront of the application might look a little bit weaker than some of the other applicants, but recognizing that some of the funding might go a much longer way to getting their program started. So these are the different programs, and they are often entry points to helping them start dialogue and discussions about establishing their farm to school team within their school community, and then bringing on other stakeholders and champions to continuing to scale up their programs over a number of years. And number 5 is our community animators. Next slide, please. Before I get into our community animator model, I wanted to just highlight just a few snippets of what we found in our evaluation survey in 2019 related to healthy eating. So what we found out was that Farm to School BC was significantly impacting the attitudes, the knowledge, and the skills related to healthy local food. Specifically, students reported increase in access to fruits and vegetables, and the evaluators saw students opting for fresh fruits and vegetables and shifting away from processed and packaged snacks. There were examples of children and their families seeking more fruits and vegetables at home. So the impact of the program went beyond the school environment. And we saw students trying new fruits and vegetables and grazing in the garden boxes. Next slide, please. Another hallmark benefit of the Farm to School program is the school community connectedness and social well-being. And those are the two of the pictures that some of the younger students drew when they were asked to draw something about what Farm to School program meant to them. Students who participate in Farm to School BC have an increased sense of belonging and pride in their school. Students reported that they are happy at school, particularly when they're engaged in Farm to School BC activities and are forming stronger ties with other students and with teachers and community members. A big common theme that arose when we asked students about how Farm to School BC made them feel and just the Farm to School BC program by and large, they said it made them feel happy. And there was a hashtag Be Happy that was resonated by a lot of the students that we asked these questions to. Next slide, please. And just capturing 2 of the quotes from our teachers. We have a teacher who talked about sense of belonging. Our principal has found the garden project to have increased belonging in community. Students are all connected with the school and the community members involved with all the different activities. And something about well-being. A student came up to our teacher and he was having a bad day. he asked if he could come up to the garden and water. We set him up to do the watering for the rest of the year. He had a sense of ownership and attended the class all the time. So all to say, yes, one of the major measurements of Farm to School BC is healthy eating, but that the benefits of the program, as you can all imagine, is much more than just about eating. Next slide, please. In terms of our adaptation and approach to how we operate our Farm to School program, it is really about school and community connectedness. And at the core of our program is really valuing the relationships that we build. So currently in BC, we have 6 regional hubs with a community animator who is a local person who knows the local context that lives in the community, hired to support the Farm to School programs that are funded by our program. And that has been one of the key measurements of success. And so our animators work with the schools, work with the school districts, the community partners, the farmers, the dietitians, and really creates a multi-sectoral team to building and sustaining and strengthening their existing program. So one of the many benefits that I'll get into is that the animator often brings in a lot of resources, a lot of capacity, and is able to navigate some of the challenging questions and dynamics within a school environment, and is able to help the schools and the Farm to School programs come to a new sort of level of implemented strategy than when it was first conceived. So the programs that our animators continue to support continue to evolve over the number of years. Next slide, please. There's a lot when it comes to unpacking what a community animator is and what a community animator does. But animators really place local people at the center of all they do, believing that sustainable solutions are only ever developed when the support of a local community is strongly evident. Animation is about helping school communities to help themselves and empowering the individuals and communities within it to make their environment a beautiful place to live, work, and play. So in our evaluation, the community animators really help to achieve many tasks, but include the following. They help to bring a focused vision to the region. They strengthen links with the community, in particular with local businesses, local harvesters, and food producers, allies to Indigenous communities, provide a framework, and so on and so forth. So on the right are some quotes, but all to say that our animators' work is very deep, very interconnected, and very complex. So at this time, I would like to invite Marcus Lobb, our regional animator for the Capital Region, to talk about what some of his work entails.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Richard. Richard asked me to just put together a few slides that talks a little bit about what we do as community animators. And so I kind of put together these different slides with a little bit of a different perspective on each one. So as I mentioned, I've been an animator in this region for the past a few years, and prior to that, I had done a number of school garden related projects and education kind of positions for a number of years. So that was one of the skills that I brought into to the team. So what is community animator? So I like to sometimes think of them as eyes and ears of the community. And we kind of thought, we kind of came to this sort of term when we were developing a sort of a training book that we created in the last year, where it's really great for an animator to be aware of what is happening in terms of food systems in the community, to know who are the actors and who are the players, and to have really a general sense of what is happening. That's a really key attribute of an animator. Animators are on the ground building networks, reducing barriers, bringing people together like-minded. We're reducing duplication of efforts. That's one of the strengths that an animator can have, a chance to bring together organizations that maybe don't normally work together to share resources, potentially look at starting bigger projects, and to sometimes stop them from necessarily fighting necessarily over grants and different funding, which happens a lot in the non-for-profit sector. We're also there to build excitement and to promote what is already existing, to make those who are not aware of these kinds of programs at schools aware of them. So taking lots of pictures and showcasing them and letting people know that these are wonderful things and there's wonderful champions at these schools doing this kind of work. We're also collecting resources and creating resources. And as you see in the picture on the right there, we're bringing people together. And this is an example of one of our learning circles. So we're bringing people together. And this is really important because one of the main things we hear from teachers and a lot of community actors that are working in and around school food and meals and things of this nature is that sometimes feels like you're on an island, you're kind of working alone, but that's not the case. There's a lot of other individuals who are also very excited about this work. So what does an animator do? So, you know, we do a number of things day to day. Obviously, within our position, we have certain deliverables that we're always moving towards, but that's one portion of the kind of role of the animator. The other half is really responding to the community needs. So some of the ways that we do that and some of the ways that we connect schools to community are what you see here in the list. So we host regional listservs. So these are, we collect email contacts and share information. We allow others to be able to access it and share information. So this is a great way of building a network. We do site visits to schools so that we're there in person, offering suggestions, hearing what the challenges are at those schools, looking for opportunities to support them outside of the school. We host learning circles and networking events. This is some of the great work that we do, bringing them together to talk amongst each other and share the resources, bring in guest speakers, that kind of thing. Professional development days, so putting on more intensive training type programs, either at district or even provincial training. So sometimes that's the animator actually hosting that and offering the expertise, and sometimes us bringing in others, specialists. We participate in a lot of committees, sit in on a lot of different levels of committees that are addressing food in general. So it's not always school related. Sometimes you'll sit in on a local agriculture board, that kind of thing, just so that you're bringing that perspective and that you're aware of what kind of opportunities are arising that might fall slightly outside of that, and looping in the work that you do in and around schools to what sometimes might seem a little bit on the fringe. We communicate a lot to school districts, and we really try to build strong relationships with them to let them know we're here to support you. We do that through a regional advisory committee that meets in my region 4 times a year. So it's actually the school districts come to the table, so do the community partners. We give them updates. We listen to see what their challenges are. We let them know about upcoming opportunities that they can share out to their teachers through their listservs, et cetera. This is one of the big aspects, and it also is really great when you're working with a number of school districts because they get to see what each other is doing, and in some ways they can inspire and help guide each other towards success. We're always looking for funding and supporting applications. So sometimes schools are just reaching out and letting us know, that they're going to work on this, and we might take a look at it and make some suggestions. Other times we might try to partner with local community organizations to go in on funding to support a number of programs or a number of schools receiving those programs. We do spring celebration events where we take the time to honor those those champions at schools, and we give out an award, and we usually have food served and that kind of thing. It's a big part of our role each spring. We're always creating partnerships, and we're always gathering resources and sharing those resources out. So I just kind of was thinking, I know that in Alberta you're thinking about wanting to find an animator or create an animator position, and one of the things that I thought might be useful just to say is kind of what kind of skills and attributes to look for if you're looking for an individual or a group of individuals. So someone who's passionate and sociable. A lot of the work that we do as animators is social interactions. We're getting people together and we're making people feel comfortable, and we want them to be able to share, and we want them to stay within the committee and know that that their voice is being heard, and that they're wanted at the table. Especially when you find someone who can really bring a lot to the table, you want to make sure that they feel like their time is well spent. So you need to have an interest in social gatherings, because that is a large part of it, and be a very strong listener. Understanding of food systems is really strong. To know what is going on in food systems in your region is really important. And another piece of it is empowering others. Having a farming and culinary or teacher background is a real great strength for an animator, just so that they understand kind of the complexities between those different sectors and how they could potentially work together. And it's great to be a leader, somebody who can see potential new visions, new ideas that could open up, but is also very good as a team player. So
Marcus,
back over to you, Richard.
can I put you on the spot and ask if you can give us an example of a school that you've worked with where you've helped them to navigate some of the complex challenges that they may have been facing?
Well, you see it a lot in terms of working with facilities management at school districts. So with School District 61, we took an approach where we actually built up very strong relationships with the district superintendent at that district, and we met with facilities and developed a green document that essentially allowed schools to put in an application to their individual district that followed steps that facilities had agreed upon, and so that that it was following a process that was going to be appropriate for that district. And so this was a really kind of a great success to be able to move into this realm, and it was through a number of schools that were needing this, but it was an example of a challenge. So schools were coming to us and saying, we can't get water access in the summer. We every time we want to put up a fence, we realize that it's going to cost a large amount in our budget. Is there other ways we can do it that fall outside of these lines? So we help bridge those conversations, and in this instance, we actually created a greening document and application form. So that's one example.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks for responding on such short notice. Yeah, just to summarize, Marcus and his region, so the capital region is actually composed of 4 school districts, and every school district is different, and all the needs and the interests are different as well too. So Marcus does a phenomenal job navigating the individual school districts, bringing them together, working through some of their challenges, and every regional hub and the Animator, it looks very different. So what works in the capital region might not work in the Vancouver region and the Kamloops region. But it's this flexible model design that I think has been so widely successful and attributed to our program's success. Another success factor of the animation is building local and regional connections, which Marcus alluded to, links to the curriculum, community animator supportive networks. The number 4, the relationship building is really important. And it's something that isn't often acknowledged or highlighted in people's work. Having a phone call here and there, going out for coffee, I don't know, just popping by to the school to say hello. I mean, prior to COVID times, these relationship building and this time that the animator often spends in making those personal efforts is really important, because when there is work, when there are opportunities to collaborate and to partner, it's really, the trust is really built on those relationships. So myself as a provincial manager, I really acknowledge and honor the time that our animators spent on the ground just networking with people. And I think that's really important for any program moving forward, is to acknowledge the amount of time that it takes to really build that trust and authentic relationship. And finally, number 5 is teacher champions and administrative support. I mean, that's really important. And the great thing is that our animator model and the animation job has been present in each of the regions for a number of years. So even if there is a transition, there's always somebody that's going to be a contact person from our team to being able to support the schools with their projects, and vice versa. If the key champion leaves at the school, the animator is able to step in and fill in that gap and potentially bring on a new champion or a new lead to supporting their respective farm to school program. Next slide, please. All to summarize, there's a lot of great activities happening at Farm to School BC. We have a lot of resources and guides. We also just launched a school farm grant. It's not open to Alberta, but we're looking to expand, what it means to have a school farm on a school district land. So that's an exciting initiative that we've launched and something that you can check us out on. Next slide, please. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation. That's our website on our right, our monthly newsletters, which you can subscribe to, our social media channels, and our contact information at the bottom if you want to know more. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Back to you, Wanda.
Thanks very much, guys.
I'm not still sharing, am I? Is it? Oh, okay, good.
So as I had said, we are going to have, sorry, the two presentations, and then we have time for a Q&A with the presenters. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask of them, if you could put it into the chat box. And I'm wondering, so I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box right now, but I will say that I think that we, when Alberta Food Matters was talking to Richard about what we could do, we had said, is there a way that we can have an animator here in Alberta and get support from the animators in BC? And Richard and Marcus have both offered that Alberta Food Matters animator, or the Alberta animator, would certainly be, I mean, they're virtual meetings, so we could certainly join in with them. So that would be an awesome support to an animator in Alberta. I see Renee has asked, how can Alberta apply for grants for the future? We actually are working on some grants, and Jesse and Richard are also know of other grant avenues. So we feel that we have a good opportunity to apply to a variety of grants. So we've got two substantial grants that we're applying for right now. We hope to at least start with one region. So that would be hopefully a few schools that are with an animator.
What I'll just say too, if individual schools are looking to apply for grants, I know at this time it's not possible to apply for the BC grants, but you are eligible to apply to Farm to Cafeteria's grants, and we'd love to see more in Alberta. So you can find out more. I'll put a link to our Get Involved page. We expect our next cycle of grants probably in the fall to be announced. And you can follow us on social media or find out more on our website about the grants and to hear when those are happening.
Right on. I see a comment from Darlene from NSTEP, and they are in Alberta and BC. The school garden work that they've done in Edmonton. Yes, water. You know, the thing, Darlene, I will say is that we have also been in touch with a lot of our teachers in Alberta who are running farm school programs, and we can definitely put you in touch with them. If you give me your email, we could put you into that group so that you can kind of brainstorm with them how they went about dealing with their issues like that. And there's the Farm to Cafeteria, right on. So Bamero is organizing our breakout rooms for us. So I'll just go back to share my screen again. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and brainstorm some ideas or next steps coming out of the presentations from Farm School and Farm to Cafeteria. And we're going to share ideas from in the breakout rooms. So we'll be sharing ideas in the breakout rooms. And I had said previously that we would work from a document that I'm just going to share right now. So in this, you see that we've got groups, and when you go into your group, you will all have the same question, and Bamero will just randomly put you into a group, and you can work right in this document to answer them. Is this being shared, you guys?
It's not being shared right now.
Okay, oh, sorry, there. Is it being shared now? Okay, so If you are in a group, your group number will be at the top, and then you can just type right into the document. If you don't want to do the document, then you could just go to the just use paper and pencil. And when we come out of the group discussion, we will go back into the whole group, and just one person could be a spokesperson for the feedback from your group. So I will just post that into.
Wanda, sorry to break off your flow. Before we go into the groups, I know there was another question that was there on the chat box, and wondering if we could also answer Darlene's question from before as well.
Okay, here's a good question. Oh, thank you. And there's Darlene's, I'll get that. So would it be possible for the animator to help schools set up with local producers? And probably Marcus or Richard.
Marcus, you want to go first? I think Marcus dropped out for some reason. Okay, he'll come back. Why don't I go first until he comes back?
Okay.
I think definitely the animator can help to set up connections with local food producers. I think there is a really strong connection here with the animator model and potentially, food procurement, like local food procurement into school meal programs. There was a tri-ministry survey that we did in BC. And one of the questions that were asked to the school districts was, what are some of the key factors that are needed to bringing in more local food, local BC food into schools? And among the top 3 choices, one of them was the farm to school animators, some type of a coordinator role that is able to bridge that connection between those who are producing food and the schools themselves. So this kind of coordination and a human resource contact would be very important and essential. And in some cases, our animators do provide that role. It's not the full extent of their role. As Marcus explained, it is a little bit different, but it is also included as part of their deliverables and their work, is to try and get schools connected with the farmers so that in any kind of school meal programs or snack programs, that we try to connect with the farmers and the local food that's produced within their area. And then to jump back to the question about Darlene, about some of the school garden challenges, I think that's a universal programs that we all face. There's 2 ways that we've been able to navigate that. One of them is on our Farm to School BC website. We have collaborated with West Coast Seeds and developed a seed planting guide that aligns with the school district so that you don't have to run into this issue about watering in the summer. But I know that with certain produce, it's important to produce it so that when students come back in fall, that it's available. So we work together with, and there's many local organizations like Fresh Roots that support a lot of the school farms in the greater Vancouver area that hire students in the summer, and they work with the school district to having access to water. So I believe that's a conversation that the local champions and the community partners need to have at the school district level. But we know that in certain school districts, they're more willing and allowing people to access water, whereas in some school districts, that's a bit of a challenge. So it's an ongoing issue that we're also facing in BC and something that our animators are continuing to pursue.
Thank you. Okay, so Bamero, if you could send people into their respective rooms, put question 2 twice. Did everybody have question 2 twice?
We did, yeah.
Oh, anyway, so I told our group what question number 3 was. I don't know if you guys knew what it was. So it was just looking for ways that we could get support from other groups out there that are on this, that to move this forward with Alberta Food Matters. So I will go to sharing and I'll bring up that document. And if everybody had a spokesperson, that spokesperson would be invited to talk. So group 1, still writing. Who is the spokesperson?
Yes, sorry. Yes, yes, we had a lot of discussion and over on the side, but a few ideas that we had for the first question was Access to an animator would be ideal to share best practices and share ideas. Local animator would be best to like to help us with the local producers. Have resources adapted to our community. Also having the farm to school program would help if we have grant application, have access again to grant application. For the, do you want us to do the question number 2 also, or?
Yes, yep, please carry on.
Yeah, and again, like I think we're all over, but yeah, a few things that we challenges and opportunities is one was getting kids to eat vegetables, and we talked a lot about that. Like it's hard to get the kids to eat vegetables, so this kind of program would promote good practices on that. We're obviously with the challenges, we're a big province. Having access to local animators would be best to have them specifically in your community, so we can connect with local producers. And I think we had talked about it in some of the discussion, is the growing period not matching the school calendar. So finding other ways to help out with the gardens, the specific gardens that we have in the communities, in our schools.
Right on.
So this is, so thanks to my partner. If you want to add, I don't know, we were just 2, so if you want to add on.
I am Jamie Moore. I pretty much summed up kind of what I was thinking. We've got it pretty much out there. So it's more of, for me, it's important as a chef, head chef of 2 schools and running a culinary program, is getting involved with the local producers and making it more accessible for students and more personal, because it is local. And I find when things are more personal to them, they're more willing to get involved.
True. Okay, I'm going to go down to group 2.
Yeah, I can present back. I took some notes. We had a pretty organic conversation, so I just tried to kind of capture some thoughts under each of the 2 questions. I would say echoing group 1 for sure, that sense of ownership, and I think really what we saw presented in the animator model and what is really representative of farm to school itself is that being driven by community and the local ideas, and having folks in the community take ownership, including intergenerational learning, which is a really great opportunity. And I think in terms of challenges, talked a bit about the watering, but also had quite a bit of conversation around some of the challenges within rural regions. So for instance, kind of not just assuming that, especially in rural areas of the province, that people are, and especially students, are connected to farming. Often there's still a lot of access to industrial food system and fast food, and not to forget about providing support in the rural areas. And we chatted a little bit about some of the cool things happening, in particular with farms in Alberta, which I have only heard of at that scale, actually happening in Alberta. So where you have school farms that aren't just growing vegetables at scale, but including livestock. So I think that's an exciting thing that others in other parts of the country and even other parts of the province, from my perspective, would be interested to learn about. Yeah, those were a few things from our group. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
I think you nailed it.
One thing I would just add, since Jamie just piped in about, and thank you for being a school chef, is that whole connection between, you know, the children, the schools, the teachers, the education, what they're learning in their curriculum. You know, they start learning about seeds and stuff already in grade 2, so they're already planting their own things. So I think that holistic connection to the community and to growing their food and then eating their own food, you know, and when we were doing that Dangling the Carrots project, project with Jim Hole, he said, he kept telling us, like, I don't understand why, we now have this whole thing that kids can't just pull the carrot out of the ground, wash it off with water and eat it, right? So just some of the things about, how you eat food, but connecting to, if you're going to grow the food, then use it in your, your snack program at school or something like that. So connecting it to what they're learning at school, and then making that connection to home. That's the thing that, we found in our InStep program too, is that, and where did most kids learn about reduce, reuse, and recycle? They learned it at school and they took it home to families. So, a lot of things that go on in school, kids take that home to their families, and that's where the connection can be really good too. So thanks for the conversation, everybody.
Awesome. I think Darlene is our spokesperson for group 3.
No, I was in group 2.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry, not Darlene. Oh dear, it was Colleen. I think it was Colleen. Oh dear. Group 3, who was our spokesperson? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, Wanda. I thought you were going to be recording. Was that
the
case?
Do you want to speak to it, or because you could? I brought it up there if you can see it.
So we're group 3. I'm having difficult. Okay, just wait. I'll try and make it bigger. There we go. So you'd like me to speak to 1, 2, and 3?
Yep, please.
Okay, so we were talking about the idea that Alberta is an ag province. Ideally, we would have gardens in each of our schools, inside and outside. Watering and maintenance has a champion, and if the champion leaves, the program is sustainable. So we were talking about the importance of having someone in a paid position to recognize the value of that position. So we like the idea of the animator, because otherwise a lot of times these jobs will fall to a few individuals and the program doesn't continue outside of them. So we're just talking about how important it is to have a really holistic attitude across the whole province. Opportunities and challenges. We said that there's a lot of opportunity in Alberta to do far more than we do. Wanda talked about how it's possible fruit trees up north. And so instead of looking to BC and saying, we can't do that here, what can we do here? And we can certainly do more than we are as far as growing things. Also, lots of opportunities. We are an agricultural area to make connections with local farms, go out and pick berries. So not necessarily having to maintain them on your own grounds, but just incorporating what's around you into your education. And how can your organization support in undertaking the Animator program? Alberta Farm. Don't reinvent the wheel, have a collective space to share where grants are available. Evaluation tools, sharing activities that people have done and that have been successful, and start small with the students, but build it over the next years, looking towards more of a holistic approach across the province. Thank you.
Awesome. And it was Deborah. Thank you, Deborah. Okay, group 4.
I was just 2 people, myself and Avni, but I believe Avni, she kept on getting disconnected, so we were only able to cover part of the conversation. But just going off of what group 3 said, one of the things that we also resonate with is that Alberta is an agricultural sort of sector, and that's sort of the way in to maybe pitching the farm to school program instead of health. I think in BC, we can make a strong case from a health lens, the benefits of a farm to school program. But in Alberta, my understanding is that maybe the system isn't set up to go through health. So I thought that was a really interesting conversation. The connections to farmers, I think, is really important, making those personal connections and talking about the benefits to children in ways that are just more than food, but about where the food comes from, the relationships that are built, I think are going to be key. I think with any kind of programming, if you make it more personable, you're going to have more interest as well. And finally, challenges were noted in Albertan context about embedding food literacy in the curriculum. And while it may sound like BC has, everything together, we still have those same challenges. So just wanted to echo to our Alberta neighbors that we have those challenges, and it's ongoing. It does depend by region, but overall, trying to put food at the center and just, I guess, highlighting and acknowledging the interconnectedness of food is something that we're always trying to make a pitch for. So yeah, those are the things that were covered.
Thank you. Avni,
yeah,
passionate. She's an awesome person to have on.
Thanks, Wanda. I'm just going to add, Richard, that what would be great from this session is to see what organizations are represented, like which organizations does everyone represent, or which schools or which school districts. So Wanda, I don't know if you're collecting that information or people
You have a very good idea. Could everybody put their school and their organization into the chat? That would be an awesome thing. And if you don't mind, maybe in the chat, tell me if you don't want to be on our, because we have a teacher mail out, we let you know about stuff. We have a school division mail out, we have public health. So if you are not interested in getting our information, it's not overwhelming, but we have a newsletter that's very well written and kind of it's a quarterly newsletter, so it kind of brings you up to speed on what we're doing. Anyway, so yeah, put it in the chat and we'll put you in our.
Do you want us to write our names directly in the Google Doc, maybe in the groups that we were in with the school board, or so then you don't have that all in your chat and we can just write it directly in the document?
Sure, that's a good idea, Renee.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're just, as Alberta Food Matters, we're just working on figuring out how to organize membership. So this is fantastic first step for that piece as well.
Right on. Good idea.
And sorry, I can't turn my video on. I'm afraid I'm gonna get kicked out again. So
no, that's good.
Meet everyone another time.
Okay, group 5. A spokesperson. And I hope you're not on mute because I can't tell. I don't know who group 5 is.
It says group 5 didn't have participants.
Oh, really? Oh, they've got some stuff written there.
They may have gone afterwards.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Meryl. And that looks like that's it. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to all right. So we are going to share the recording that we take of this session on our YouTube page. Vimero is our communications guy, and he likely, Vimero, I'm not sure if you would put it on our Facebook page, but definitely be on the YouTube page. And we are so thankful that Jesse and Marcus and Richard could present to us. And this is indeed just the beginning, and we intend to keep building on this and staying in touch. So any last words from our presenters?
I'll just say thanks everybody for your time. I know, especially these days, Zoom can be really exhausting, but it's exciting to see the interest in Farm to School in the province of Alberta, and pleasure to be here and chat with all of you today.
Awesome, thank you.
Marcus had to run, but on behalf of Public Health Association of BC, yeah, we just wanted to thank you for taking the time, and we're rooting for you as well.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Yeah. Okay, everybody, we should have this recording up shortly, and we will talk to you all soon, I hope.
Thanks,
Thank
Wanda.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Wanda. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everyone.